Welcome
Hello.
back to the Positively Jack podcast after so long away.
Do you remember us?
Yes, well,
I'm Jess, if you don't remember.
and we are here to talk or to dish about real-time strategies, both positive psychology inspired, fitness, wellness, and all of the alike. But we took a little bit of a hiatus.
We had a busy couple weeks. You had a busy couple weeks.
I had a real busy couple of weeks. Yes, I did, and no regrets.
No, you talked about this for, the better part of a year.
Yeah. So for those who are not in the gym listening, possibly, or those of you who just didn't know, I spent 2 weeks in Europe. I have never been to Europe. I've never been outside of the U.S. other than one or twice to Mexico. That's, as typical Midwesterners do. And it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Me and my wife's honeymoon / backpacking trip through Europe.
Yeah. We were in contact much of the time, so I felt like I was along for the ride. Just so many adventures, so many insights. I feel like now I want to preface this by saying I told you didn't have to contact me.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to, I was going to peace out. Was going to be, but it was less than 24 hours and you're like, hey.
The hardest part about a trip like that is that because, first of all, anytime you're doing something that brand new to that level of immersion, it's really hard not to share some of those things with people. Like me and Kels were experiencing it, but you want to talk more about it to people outside of the sphere, so you can let them know what the experience is going like. It makes it that much better.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had to, because there were just things. I'm just gonna preface it by saying there are so many things that it is amazing you can get used to in the US as a standard or a bar or just the way things are. And within 2 hours of us being in Barcelona, they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's things you just utterly take for granted. Like when we went into COVID lockdown, it was I didn't realize how many micro interactions I had all day, every day. It's just the littlest things they're just in the background of your life that you don't think about until you're somewhere completely different.
Yep. And for me, I think one of the biggest things is I think the last vacation I took is 2021. That was more than a couple of days. So it's been almost 3.5 years. And on top of that, we've just been so busy at Fringe. We had a lot of stuff changed last summer into the fall. We lost one of our main full-time employees in November, which added workload onto me. And I just never realized how much I had been just go, and just constantly moving. And then finally, when your brain gets a chance to decompress, you're like, oh, wow, I actually have time to think about some of these things that have been on the back burner just out of habit.
Yeah, I would say even since, honestly, I feel like we've been kind of in that mode since COVID, right? Yeah. And coming back from COVID, I think we just continued to absorb so much. I think we were just so eager to get back after that. And we've just continued to absorb tasks, processes, new members, growth, and losing a full-time staff member. And we just absorbed that. And it day to day, you don't notice it, but it does accumulate. I know you did, but it just you just all of a sudden you just stop. You're like, oh my God, when did everything become so full all the time?
Yeah. And in that time, we've had a lot of transitional moments, right? You guys moved cross country.
Yep.
Me and Kels were planning a wedding. There was a lot of things that, filled the time, but then you get there. And I will say this. You and I are two peas in a pod when it comes to stopping, full stop of work, and productive, production is the most significantly hard thing for me to do.
Yeah. It's a thing in motion stays in motion, and we are the picture in that dictionary definition. It's the thing, once it's in motion, just keeps going.
Since 2015 for me, when I moved to Colorado, it has all been about every day has been about production. What can I put out today? Who can I coach? What program can I write? And stuff like that. And it's just constant turnover.
Well,
And
I
this
think
was,
we have the benefit of loving what we do. And I think that's a big part of it. People are always like, don't you want a vacation? Do you want to slow down? I'm like, I do, but when I'm in the work, I love what I'm doing.
yeah, yeah. So it just keeps us moving. But this is the first vacation that
Mm-hmm.
I took where I didn't take my laptop. We took an iPad and our phones,
Yeah.
and I had some notebooks. I had a book that I had been trying to read since the start of the year, and that was it. Like
Yeah.
I made a distinct promise to Kels the second we left that I would not touch an ounce of work, and I didn't, and nobody
Yep. And
died.
we held you to it,
Yeah,
and we
I
took
know
care of
you guys.
everything.
You guys helped me with that a ton.
There
That's
were
I was
like little
like,
moments I could feel it, like you wanted to say it. I was like, nope, we're not going to talk about it. Let's talk about food. Let's talk about the Game of Thrones sites you visited. Let's talk
yes,
about anything else.
the wall and running loops on it. But yeah, it was amazing. 2 weeks. Everybody who's asked me, my primary answer and almost only answer is it was life changing. It just
Yeah.
opened up so much.
You were having, I mean, it was fun to just watch. You were have these like huge 90-degree mindset shifts throughout this trip.
Well, when you get, you know, conservatively speaking, I've got 30 to 40 online people I work with every week.
Mm-hmm.
I coach in person on my feet probably 25 to 30 hours a week minimum.
Yeah.
Of the people I remote coach, I'm doing stuff like this with at
Mm-hmm.
least 5 to 10 of them each week. And that's not even including any of the back end stuff, right? Programming, doing correspondence stuff, and stuff like that. So
Housekeeping.
days are just so full.
Yeah.
And you sometimes get a little bit fight or flighty with responses, and that becomes your standard. And
Yep.
then you get there and you get your brain decompressed, and you realize that the only thing you have to do in that moment is be there
Yeah.
and eventually eat or nap.
Or think
And
about what you want.
yeah, and oh my god, I had I had probably 4 or 5 journaling sessions
Yeah.
that were pages
Yep.
of like well articulated. Some of it was even like a new style of bringing people into a program. Some of it
Mm-hmm.
was like dishing on why I have like preconceived thoughts about myself back from like when I was young. And it was just very reflective. And it was so cool because I have not had that in
No.
years. And
No.
it was something where I'm just like, you know what? I I think this needs to be a little bit more frequent.
Yeah. You've definitely set the bar for my trip in 64 days. So
Yes.
that being
Yes.
said, oh, I'm so excited. We are going to Munich, Salzburg, Hallstatt, and Vienna.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we are going to an F1 race, our second.
That's
So,
awesome. I cannot. That's amazing.
says the guy who hasn't even watched Drive to Survive yet, even
We
though.
tried. We did. We watched a couple episodes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. This was also when we were preparing to leave.
So, that being said, if you could drill it down into like the three most impactful 90-degree turns you had in your brain during your trip, what would they be?
If you are based in the US, it is incredibly difficult with certain things in place, systems in place and stuff like that to find health, wellness, and balance compared to where we were.
Oh.
That was profound. And actually I theorized with Kels, like CrossFit, that's like a root base to bring so much of us together. CrossFit has a huge base in the US. It started in the US, everything like that. And it's decent in Europe. Like there's a good amount of gyms, but health and wellness is so ingrained into the culture. Like everybody walks, everybody bikes. There are parks everywhere with fitness equipment. There were in Girona, the one town we went to, there were 60, 70-year-old individuals, and this is cobblestone, old steps, inclined stairs,
not standard, not ADA approved,
and they're just going. They're just moving through their environment, and it's because they have it set up like that. Like these cities were made to be walked in and biked in first. It was almost inconvenient to have a car in some of them. So yeah, that is a big one of like quality of food, quality of standards here and stuff like that. it's set up to be a bit of an uphill battle for health. It really is. And to add to that note, but the second note would be quality food. Wow. Quality, locally sourced food. Kels has been gluten-free for 3+ years. She very rarely has dairy. She had both on this trip, and 3 or 4 days in, holding nothing back, she said, my skin hasn't been this clear since 3rd grade. And it's because certain products and certain additives from the US are illegal there. And so you're not getting high fructose corn syrup. You're not getting any of that stuff. Everything you eat is sourced within 100 miles.
Yeah.
And there are bakeries, there are grocery stores, there are butchers, there are restaurants, all this stuff. But the quality of food made such an impactful difference on how we felt.
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever eat Chipotle the same way, will you?
I don't know if I'm ever.
You were shitting on the Chipotle as soon as you got home. You're like, what is this garbage?
I don't know if I'm ever going to eat it again. I just can't.
Yeah, I get it.
The bar has been raised, like fresh and like not loaded with growth hormone, not loaded with preservatives, salt, sodium, all this other stuff that's like quick fix here.
Yeah,
it's not there. It's like it does not go out. Like we actually had to hunt down bad food. Like if you wanted like bad food, there were like Five Guys over there and stuff like that, but you had to search for it. It was not as readily available here.
Yeah.
And then the third point would be, this is a really fun one because I actually journaled on this. There are language barriers to a lot of things. Kindness is probably the one that I saw break them down the quickest.
Really?
If I was really nice and like I had my little translate app up, and if there was just a huge language barrier between me and the other person, now like a lot of people spoke English. I have very minimal conversational Spanish, but the more I showed humbleness and like even cracked a joke and stuff like that, and apologize, but like kind of just led with like trying to be really nice and like ask them for understanding. The amount of people who told us we might have a negative interaction, especially in Paris, everyone was wrong.
Yeah.
We didn't have one bad interaction.
It's like if you lead with humility and kindness, that it was fine. I found that too, for sure.
No problems, nothing. And we even saw, and like the way we did our trip, we saw people from the US do it differently. The very typical, I'm going to go stay in this hotel, go see just the sites. Kels and I got an Airbnb integrated into this big courtyard where other residents were. We walked the streets, we went around with the locals, and we got to see more of the city interact and the city come alive than a lot of people do. And we heard about it at dinner. People didn't know what behind these big iron doors were because they're staying in a hotel, and they didn't know that there's these courtyards that are intricate, and there's like greenery and gardens, and it keeps the noise of the city out. So it's really, you could just sit on your patio in this big old courtyard with all these other residents behind the city walls, and it was really fascinating.
Do you think that and I felt this too, it's like when you get there initially you're just so overwhelmed, you kind of don't want to. You've got kind of your book of the safe places you've identified before you go, and then you get more comfortable as you go in.
The funny thing is, I kind of went, like, we got familiar.
You were the opposite. You just...
Well, no, realistically, yeah.
Yeah.
We just, like, when we showed up to our hotel in Barcelona, we did a bag drop, and we literally go outside. It was 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And we just looked up and down the streets, and we saw, like, 3 places open. One of them said that they had espresso and sandwiches. And we were just like, cool. And the funny thing was, we walked in, one of the guys who spoke Spanish, he was like, oh, you're from the States? And we're like, yes. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, this place is great. You'll love it. Just so you know, neither of the owners speak Spanish or speak English. And I was just, okay. And so we walked.
Thank you.
And walked up, and the waiter came over, and I was just like, small conversational Spanish, pointed at the menu, please, thank you, and stuff like that.
Yep.
A couple of great breakfast sandwiches and a couple shots of espresso, and we're ready to walk the town. But it was just nice. It was nice to walk and integrate, and like, you got Google Maps. Get lost a little bit.
Yeah. That's good to know. I think I always err on the side of being too prescribed. I want to plan everything out. I want to have a vision for what I'm doing every day. And maybe that's something I need to rethink just a little. Just let it go. Just calm down.
The way when we let stuff go, that's how we found the Gothic Quarter in Barcelona.
Yep.
That's how we found the open air market. That's how we found some of these really good restaurants. And we would double check, like we'd check reviews and just make sure that, stuff like that. But no different than we would do in any other city. And we just intentionally got lost. There was a couple times we went on runs that Kels somewhat plotted the running course, and we got lost.
It's gonna be great, and you're like, it's uphill the whole way.
That was rough. But
I couldn't tell. I was like, you called and you were just like, I'm so jet lagged. That was all uphill.
Running, well, let's run around Barcelona. She ran up and out of Barcelona, up the hills, and we looked down on the entire city all the way to the coast. And
happy accident.
It was a beautiful run, but my God, it was a lot. But yeah, those would be my 3 main points. And honestly, like aside from those, if you are in the U.S. and you have not traveled outside of it, other than Mexico or Canada, please go to Europe. Go to some of these places where the culture will spin quite a few things for you, because you, in theory, and it's out there, I can see why you don't understand it and why it might be worrisome, but when you integrate into it, even just for a few days, you see so many cool things and why people enjoy it.
So basically, Nate and I have decided that we're rethinking our retirement plans.
Right.
There will be a commune situation sprouting in a European city. Girona. Our spouses don't know it yet? Oh, well, there we go.
We'll do it in Girona. It's like a college town. It's got 110,000 people, but it's instant. The train station's right there.
I'll take it.
Yeah. 2 hours on the train, we can be in Switzerland.
Oh, well, you had me at Switzerland.
There you go.
Actually, you had me at Europe, period. So you also had me at food pictures and everything else you shared along the way. So I'm just so excited for you. What a cool experience.
It was life-changing, without question.
But we still were in contact, and something happened while you were gone.
Yes, a thread.
A thread.
A thread that kept extending and extending and extending.
So you want to say what it was? I feel like we've juiced this up now.
Well, no. So I want to preface this with one thing. Okay.
Yep.
If everybody doesn't know, the internet is full of information. It is full of resources. It is full of other stuff. It is also full of a lot of crap.
Yeah.
And you know what? This will probably, some people will understand what we're talking about. There was a post in request for somebody helping with nutrition, lifestyle stuff. And it's in Columbia, Missouri, right? We're a population of 130,000.
Small town.
Not a big town.
No.
And so this person was asking for help and references.
For nutrition help. For nutrition help. Yep.
And what proceeded to follow was a
case study. It's like a case study in why we exist.
It was a mix of amazing references. Like I love Neil to death because he posted up and linked me in. He's like, Nate, hands down, is one of the best to help with because of the work we've done, work I've done. I was like, dude, Neil, thank you so much. I commented back. I was like, I'd be happy to help. In truth, I joked with you afterwards. I was like, I should have put that my books are closed because, quite frankly, they should be.
We should probably shut it down right now.
Right. But then what was really funny was the references that some people put on there were a little bit more biased.
It was wild. It was like everything in the kitchen sink, but it was like also representative of, I feel like, all the types of advice and ads and stuff you would encounter on Instagram. It was like, get your hormones checked. Don't eat fat. Stop doing it was just like, it was a barrage. It was like 50 comments in a day, and they all represented some agenda.
Right. And that was the thing. Like, this is where I go to there's good things on the internet and then there's crap. Because some of the stuff that got referenced or pushed in that thread was, to me, either laughable or like, oh, you really have no clue what you're saying to this person.
I don't even remember everything now. I think you're going to have to just like recount some of it so people have an idea of what you saw.
The hormones getting checked and oh, do you have this syndrome? It was like WebMD threw up for a second, right? Like, I'm having trouble eating on WebMD, and then the results come in.
You might have cancer. You're going to die.
So there's everybody with their own opinion of what it could be because of what they've explored. Then there was an onslaught of references. And I'm not one to say that, like, I'm a huge believer that most of the result comes from the relationship and the communication between the individual and the professional.
Absolutely.
Right. So certain referrals could go really, really well. But people were throwing out referrals for individuals that have not been around very long, very new, very good at, in my opinion, they're good at social media. And that's about it. Like, that's their presence. They don't really have any.
Well, because they're trying to start a funnel.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So they don't have exactly a track history of actually working with people, let alone this particular cohort, this particular type of individual.
Yeah.
And then there were people jumping, and this was the one that I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but it is one of those things where know what you're asking for. There was a lot of people throwing in a lot of hard dietetic references.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that I know more than nutrition about dietitians at all. I'm not that silly.
No.
We actually refer to several dietitians when we need help. But when someone's asking for coaching and work with food and like exploring habit forming lifestyle changes that are going to meet them where they're at, I don't think they should immediately seek a medical professional, because I think a dietitian has bigger fish to fry. And I think nutrition coaching is the place to start. And then if it seems like there's a real big ask out of that, then you bring in the medical side. But
I think people get caught up in the credential aspect. And I can fully say that when I started, the idea of like, well, they're a dietitian, they went to school for this, therefore their expertise makes them the right thing to handle anything.
Right.
And I think as I've gone on in life, I've realized that even dietitians have a scope of practice.
Right.
Like everybody has like their little cake dome of area, right? And it was somebody who was like, yeah, this dietitian, she is like the foremost person of knowledge and working with families on nutrition. And I was like, who gave her that certificate of approval?
Right.
Like, where does that even, what?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about dietetics certifications and stuff like that. Like what else they could do.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was just so much. There was like, this thing was a lightning rod. It had like 75 comments.
It was wild. And I think it kind of represents so many people that we hear from at the start. It's like, you hear so much mixed messages. If people only realized it was just this easy and there were only these little tweaks they had to make and pull these little levers just a little and they could see success. And then you got the other extreme where it's like, you shouldn't even start until you get your hormones checked. And by the way, get a blood draw, maybe get an MRI, like make sure you get the full workup so you have all the data in front of you to make an informed decision, which stacks against other types of medical practice where you're like, yeah, I would want a second opinion. I would want all this data to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
And you have to really look at like, well, what are we trying to achieve? What's the goal? Who are you? Where are you? And where are you wanting to go?
Yeah. And I don't think many people who posted a comment to that thread gave that as a consideration. They saw the opportunity to contribute what they felt was the most right answer. And that was really it.
Yep.
It wasn't whether or not this particular reference or this particular route was going to fit this person. And the person's question was innocent. It was simple. It was, hey, I'm having struggle with this because of this particular stage in my life. And it's like, okay, there's nutrition coaching, there's dietitians, there's people that we refer to as well if they're out of our hands. But it became a competition, hilariously enough. Like, who could, bid here. I can help you with your body fat. Well, I can help you with your thermoregulation. Like, it's like, what hell? Like, it was so competitive. And this is,
do you have toxins in your liver? It was like everything.
Clean out and all this other stuff. Oh. No, but that was the thing. And actually, Neil, we had a conversation about this way after about how in where we're at, a lot of times when business is gained or earned by someone, it's not celebrated by colleagues or anything like that. It's like, why didn't I get that? And that's what I saw reflected in this post was like, I'm going to get this. Like this one person is somebody I'm going to make sure works with this. It's like, there's a lot of inflation of like, are you that? Are you hurting that bad to like sign someone up? Because
it was the irony too that she had asked because she's like, I feel like I'm entering perimenopause.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm at in my life. So I'm watching as like somebody adjacent who's kind of entering those waters myself, and I've experienced some of the stuff around that. And I wanted to be like, hey, I'm in this with you. Like, I don't need you as a client. We're fine. But like, I just want to say, like, I feel what that's like.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of empathy for you right now because I know how weird it is to feel like I could do this forever. And then all of a sudden you're like, this isn't working. I feel different. Why is this look this way now? I don't understand. And you're like, I was on a great path. I'm doing everything right. And suddenly this is different. What's changing? It's scary and it's frustrating. And I just wanted to tell her, like, I have a lot of empathy for you. And I think that's what was missing in that post was like a really kind of thing that I feel like is key to a really great coach.
Yep.
And a really good first interaction is that, like, I have empathy. I'm here to explore this with you. Mm-hmm. It could go all different ways. We might end up needing a specialist, but like, let's just sit in where we are and explore a lot of options and talk about how we're feeling and consider the things that are in front of us first before we get all the way over to like flushing our liver, thermonuclear regulation, whatever's out over there. I don't know what it is. It was just a moment of like, nobody is just stopping for a second and like doing the thing that we're supposed to do, whether like you're a specialist or not.
Right. No, it was like, it just seemed very egocentrically driven when people would put stuff up, whether it was their own business or whether they were referring somebody. It was very odd. And I really hope this, I still don't know. I haven't talked to her or her husband who we see at the gym, but you know, I really hope she found somebody that works well. I hope it's a good relationship. I hope it's a build, but I also really hope that if she reached out to somebody who might not have been the best fit, that person who's not the best fit and her are willing to call it if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that you can't get back is time. And like, whether it's the communication style, whether it's the workflow, whether it's the organization of how to progress things, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's a relationship, you know, like we've talked about it a few times. You shouldn't necessarily stick with the first therapist you meet. You shouldn't necessarily stick with the first trainer or coach that you meet. Like, find the one, set the bar. Like, you should shoot for the moon on this one. This person needs to line up with you because you're talking about some significant potential changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, I've been doing a lot of work somewhat adjacent in my actual job. We're releasing a dashboard, and this dashboard collects all sorts of data on each individual employee to determine like a readiness. And it's supposed to help manage high performance culture. And one of the things that was missing that I called out, I was like, you know, nobody's talking about how to use this data to have conversations, actual human conversations. Because like, if you present people with a ton of data, it can be highly demotivating.
Yeah.
It can be highly demotivating, or you're not managing the relationship correctly because there's just data as a wall sitting between you. And so I wrote like a short guide in a couple hours about like, the dashboard is a tool. It's a starting point, but it's not where you should end.
Right.
The relationship needs to be there. The relationship between a coach or whoever's delivering feedback or guiding somebody through that process, like, that's where the bread gets buttered.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, if you eat bread.
If you eat bread. In Spain.
Which I love bread. So
in Spain,
that's where your bread gets buttered. Like, and I, you know.
With that as your project and that as your integration, I get, and that was the thing that you were missing. how do you, I guess what was your thoughts on how you bridge that gap quickly, or like bridge that gap to where it's like keep the data serving as this purpose, but then from there it comes down to, you know, being human or relating to humans.
Yeah, I think obviously the communication relation aspect has to always be the forefront. You're communicating with the human. The data is a support mechanism to make decisions. But I think it's also, you know, what we talk about and what Andy, who's a great friend of mine now, I consider him a friend. He's also a consultant that works for Salesforce. We talk about the conditions and the environment a lot, very consciously. And so, you know, your success is determined by the environment you set, which is bolstered by data, which drives performance. Right. But the data doesn't suck up all the oxygen in the room, right? It's never just sitting in front of you as a person in the room. It's always over here, and we manage the conditions. And I think, you know, what makes it for me relate to this situation is that like so many people dive right into like driving toward results with shitty conditions.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, so you go get your thermonuclear whatever regulated, and it just derails your day-to-day life, and you're stressed, and all these other markers are thrown off. And all of a sudden you're managing this small piece of data that you think is going to drive results when the bigger results are actually in your greater environment day to day. Right. And so that's what we try to do is like, okay, this readiness score is determined by these skills and this performance and going to these conferences or doing whatever. But what are the day-to-day conditions that drive the success of those things? Right. And for the people that we work with, what does that look like? That looks like sleep, stress, happiness levels, quality food intake, enough food intake, like all of those things. Yeah. The athlete is driving all these skills and performance. The employee is driving all these skills day to day toward business impact and success. The conditions are what feed that. And they're not driven by tiny data points.
No.
Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, I guess conditions are a human element to a point, right? Like it's an organism, right? That influences it, right? And the data is just the data makes you more informed. It's you looking back and realizing like what worked, what didn't. But in order to take those steps forward, it's going to be utilizing the knowledge you have, but effectively making a best guess commitment based on the data, but not fixating on not one data point. You got to take the bird's eye view for a second and see where the flow is going with all of that.
Well, let's say flushing toxins in your liver. Where do the toxins come from?
Yeah.
Like just travel that upstream a little bit.
Yep.
And you're still going to come back to very, very basic core things. And I know that people get frustrated. Oh man, sleep, eat food. That's such simplistic advice. You don't know what you're talking about. It's like, no, those are actually the biggest drivers toward actual performance and improvement.
Yeah. What's the biggest influences on your hormones?
Right.
I mean, other than your genetics. Like genetics are a thing, but genetics are also expressed because of food, environment, all this other stuff. Like, there was I can't remember who said it, but they basically it was a comment on prescription meds. Right. And it's like, I'm not against prescription meds.
No.
But if your systems are not firing on all cylinders, if you're not hydrating, you're not sleeping well, you're not getting enough micronutrients and macronutrients, lifestyle, all this other stuff, then pharmaceutical work, you know, in a certain realm is just going to mask a hugely underlying behavioral problem. Right. So yeah, I that's interesting. I love that you're the instructional designer, like side of like, guys, like data's awesome, but also be human.
Well, it is. And, you know, I think probably I'll post it with whatever graphic we use for this episode, but Andy has an incredible leadership chain that illustrates human conditions, performance, business impact. Like it literally is the same with the people that we work with. And I think what it drives, and I think you said this on a call when we were talking when you were gone, was that like people feel like they have to go to a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go to a specialist, and I'm defining specialist as somebody with a very specific expert level scope of practice in something, is they miss somebody who is looking for all the opportunities to leverage.
Yep. Yeah. I do remember that part of the call. Yeah. It was,
because that was like the moment for me. It was just like that's it. That's absolutely it.
Right. It's an opportunity for a change. It's not a time to, like you said, garner down on this specific metric or this specific data.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Opportunity is broad. It's forward thinking.
Right.
It's optimistic. It's, there's going to be challenge, but that's why it's phrased as opportunity. Like there's a change and a challenge, but the goal is to garner a better result.
Yep.
And specialist is I'm going to fix this one thing.
Yep.
And that's a pretty big gamble if you think that's the key log that's going to unlock all other things, especially if it's in such a narrow scope.
Yep. And I think, working with the right coach, they'll know when to leverage the specialist. They'll know, and we've done it. You've done it. We know when to pull that lever. Yeah. There's a moment when you get there, but not unless we've driven these other things first, these other bigger pieces, the more human elements of behavior change that we have at our disposal to work with you on first.
Right.
And those often lead to better quality of life outside even the goal you were trying to hit in the first place. Yeah. It's like, with me, where it was like I improved my nutrition because I was trying to get pregnant, and it snowballed a series of other changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of a sudden I've got a different job. All of a sudden I've got a better job. All of a sudden I'm better at this at work. Like it literally went that far for me.
And it can do that for pretty much anybody. It's just about, like we've talked about before, like you have to have moments where you make some hard changes, you give yourself some boundaries, and then you have check-ins to where you look up, check out the terrain, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm better at this, which provides another ripple effect into opportunity here and to opportunity here. And yeah,
this Facebook thread. I was like playing a game of which funnel's going to go next.
It was more about,
I was like, we were exhausting.
Opportunities to learn,
thermonuclear, liver
and
enzymes,
change course, as opposed to opportunities testing. On fixing.
I was like, what's going to come out next? Like, somebody did do 75 hard. 75 hard was on there.
It's just, you gotta.
Oh yeah, I love that one. Yeah. Oh my God.
About one of the comments or one of the references?
Yeah. Oh, well, you already know because I hit it with you all the time. You know exactly who I'm talking about. It's I posted about it on Threads the other day. I was like, I feel like every grift starts with a join my free Facebook group
with the fix,
and if it doesn't go there, it goes
this thing.
Buy my course.
It was so definitive answer.
And I just look. I am a course developer. If anybody has an opinion or love of courses and enablement, it's me. Why are you selling people a course when they've never worked with you before? Like you're going to sell them a course with non-specific, non-tailored advice and then be like, come work with me. Like, what's the angle? I know it is. It always is making money. But like the purist in me is like, first of all, that should just be a job aid, not a course. Second of all, why does everybody need a course? And I've seen courses that are really good. Like Molly Galbraith just put out one for, ironically, women entering perimenopause and menopause. And it was like a 5 email.
It spiraled down. Like, it seemed like every comment, it seemed to spiral down another funnel.
And it was great. I don't want to go through your funnel and log into a course.
Like we said, everybody.
None of us
something to be fixed.
And if
this is
I
something
don't,
like, hey,
somebody who loves to eat that data like a meal.
There are tricks.
What random person who's wanting to make change is going to take your course, have all these questions come up, and then have no answers unless they buy your service?
Let's talk about some commonalities. Let's talk about the things that we have going that are good. And then let's try this. Give it some time to digest. Give it some time to marinate and see how it unfolds, right? Like, I hate to say it, but nobody is going to know the right answer for this individual person's seeking help.
It's a way to convey that you're an expert at something, but like, we know, you're not. Experts wouldn't choose that method. Just saying. So there's my little backhanded comment for the day.
Check out the book of Eating for Your Blood Type. I'm just like, what? They're like, I digress. On those notes.
Oh, it's not custom macro plans?
What is?
I figured it would be a custom macro plan.
What would you say is when you see these posts go up, and we see them often, like we see people seeking out help, but we also see people advertising their help. What is the cringiest one to you?
B
yes,
tier.
I do, but
Are we? Did your mom write your email campaign? Because she probably forwarded 10 things to a Nigerian prince after sending that email.
We know it's making money.
I hate anything that starts with most people don't get fit or people don't do this because of this, and it's like, okay, well, could you get more narrow? Because I don't think you're gonna fit through the door. Like, could you just fold yourself any thinner?
Yeah,
like,
little system.
Who? Mm-hmm. Or like, unpopular opinion. Most people don't get healthy because they're scared. I'm like, okay, Captain Obvious, thank you.
It's an attempt at taking one seeming something like exclusive or something like that, but it's trying to catch those empty grabbers, the people that are reaching for something.
The kitten posters. Sure is your coaching style a kitten poster?
A course, and they're like, oh, I'm going to learn something, and it's right.
You can do it. You have to have belief.
A whole lot of experts on Instagram. No. I love it. The most the cringeworthy funnel.
Do you have any actual methods or clients that you've worked with, or are you basically a preacher for mindset?
Anyone who uses made up percentages. I absolutely hate that. Like, no, not that one's just it's boring now. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, that's your selling point nowadays. Where it's 2024, man. Like, come on, that's a little old school.
People who misuse
that could be a B tier, but
legitimate things.
The worst one is
like,
I hate the people
it's like buzzwords, but they never actually like research the buzzwords, and they're just like,
the secret you don't know.
Coach. You're like,
I
what?
hate that. that is like nails on a chalkboard to me.
You didn't look into that.
Everybody says
but we did a previous
counting
episode on it.
calories
Maybe
is the way to lose fat. They're wrong. This is the one thing you don't know. Sign up for my email, and it's just like, I'm sure you and your 100,000 followers on YouTube discovered something against research and dietetics and all this other stuff. Been talking for decades. Like, yeah.
It's basically like, I think Hannah and I were talking about, it's like Fitness Preacher. It's just like you don't dig into the data at all. Like, you're just you're writing sermons every week, and your sermons just have recurring messages.
Caused by this thing
you're basically just saying the same thing over and over again, but each week it's a sermon meant to like pump people up, or uses like a reusable sound clip on TikTok. Like, oh my God. What does that even mean? Like, just at least read something, anything. Right. Nate finished Mastery last week.
I don't know.
It's really great. We should stop before we poop talk anybody else. We offend everybody.
To particular note, I think we touched this in one of our.
You're back from vacation. We had to do
really
like an episode where we're just like, hey,
the coaches that advertise, and I made this metaphor. It might be a similar. Who knows? Of your coaching style is that of like a really dry doctor's office where there's like the hang in there posters. It's those cliches that they use. Courage, and it's just that's all it's riddled with, is these hot button words that were really cool when they were on a freaking index card surrounding your third grade room. Like,
completely.
Courage, optimism.
Yep.
It's just like, could you
don't know everything.
Like, substance?
We don't know everything.
Just terrible.
Like, you don't know. And humans are complex.
Oh my! I can't. As someone who loves to nerd out over psychology and like how it influences the way people do things, I almost get physically ill now when I see that stuff.
Yeah, it's not a game.
Mindset and mindfulness practices, and it's just like, I don't think you actually know which ones have worked for people. I don't think you know any of that, because
I think that's needless to say, we saw that thread and it just spiraled.
There's better ways, so, and you're just kind of grabbing with a real elusive sounding thing.
Fantastic. Yep. Yep. Good people spread good people.
Right.
Yep.
Oh my.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Today, mental toughness.
I mean, I just haven't experienced the magic of thermonuclear regulation yet, so whatever. Well,
I have notes. I have records. Yeah, Jesus.
Well, they still exist. First Form still makes like a fat burner. I told you that my first job out of college was working for a magazine that was owned by a supplement company that made fat burners that were then deemed illegal and banned. It was the supplement superstore, or what was it? Not supplement superstore. It was the supplement store in St. Louis.
One, not our intent, but our intent is.
It was owned by, I can say it now because I don't know where he is, but Attilio de Agostino.
Habits, strategies, and things that will actually help people, not help the ego.
Yeah,
of which
go look him up. Like
that is directed towards working with their clients.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Like if you said earlier in the podcast that all the great coaches have empathy. I also think that they have a great capability in completely dropping ego when they're working with someone. Right. You have to do that because
I feel like that's another coaching red flag. If you look at their social media and they're basically fan-childing
the more you realize you don't.
Any supplement brand.
Yes, there is a ridiculous amount of data out there on so many things. And if you are fortunate enough,
you don't need to be taking
to have a personality that attracts people, and you are fortunate enough to have a system that might have garnered you some success, I would hope that you have the ability to drop your ego enough to realize that you are engaging with people on very intimate details of their lives.
Inside joke.
And if you are offended by what we are saying in this, cool.
Yeah.
Let's have a chat. I would love to know why you choose these methods and this rhetoric and this language and verbiage to try to get clientele. I would love to know why, because I see no real reason to try to bait people in that manner. I think it's disingenuous.
Yeah. We do.
I think I will say this to cap off that thread. There were also
stay tuned.
A good handful of references out there that I will back 10 times out of people I have worked with, people I have referred to, and I love that they got shout outs because it's, like we said, it's about who is the best fit. And I have great fits for people that 3 months with them, your life will change. And that's I will say that to the effect of several of those people, but most of them not. It's thermoregulation. So it's what happens. What is it? That was one of the coined terms when it was all the fat burners that were coming out. Yeah, I know. Oh yeah. Oh, I can probably tell you which. Okay. Oh, which one? There was a. That sounds familiar. That would be a rabbit hole right there. That's a rabbit hole of let's talk supplements. I have no educational background enough to really talk about it, other than knowing that there is like a few that have been long-standingly researched, and the rest of them is just kind of like barely being pieced together in the last 10 years. Oh man. No, and you know what's funny? You know what the ultimate fat burner is, everybody? I'll leave you with this rosebud. The ultimate fat burner? Having muscle. That's the ultimate fat burner. You know what? You know what? In the right circumstances. Oh man. All right. We will. That was a good one. I like this. I like being able to recap a little bit on Spain. You get a chance, get outside the US. I love learning more about how you're implementing some of this stuff into systems design. Like that's cool to me because there's a lot of big companies out there. And a lot of them are finally learning that if they turn a little bit of an inward look at how the wellness of their employees are doing, they can do even better as a company because they have happy, healthy, hungry, and horny individuals underneath. That last one. So it is. It's a wonderful tool. All right. On that note, this will launch probably within the next week. It's the 17th, and then after that, we might post up some grabs to see if there's anything that people want to talk to us about. We have a good list, but I would like to I'd like to crowdsource at some point. I would love to. I would love for people to submit questions to you. I think that would be fantastic. I'm more curious as to what's going to happen with rapid fire questions to Jess, because Jess being on a podcast in front of a camera on microphone in general is already a step into the discomfort level sometimes. So being pointed at and asked questions is going to be even more fun. I have no problem, but I'd love to just sit back and ask you questions. I'd love to be just let's focus on Jess for a whole episode because she is a fascinating person. Oh, no. Let's go. We I There's a couple of guests. I've got a few people that I think would be a lot of fun to have on in different areas and just different experience levels in this space. And we have a lot of cool friends. Yeah. Stay positively, Jack.